My mom faked multiple sclerosis for a decade while I cleaned her floors, skipped meals, and gave up art school for her. When I asked her why she did it, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Because it worked. I just walked out." That was 11 months ago. Today, she was crying in her jail cell when they brought up the footage. I was 13 when my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. We were already pretty broke, so when she cut her work hours down to just 25% of what they were originally, my 17-year-old sister Riley started working and taking double shifts. Meanwhile, I dropped all my after-school activities and started spending my time cleaning the bathroom, mopping the floors, and cooking dinner for us. But through it all, there was one thing that kept me going: the need for mom's approval. You see, her gratitude always went to Riley. The hugs, the kisses, and what I yearned for most, the I love yous. At first, I thought it was accidental, but then came my 16th birthday. I didn't have any friends, but I still wanted to host something. So I asked Riley if she wanted to watch a movie at home and told her to bring her BF Josh. She was 20 by this point and had moved out, but was still sending money to us. We were all gathered by the TV watching The Notebook when Josh came in with a birthday cake. As everyone sang, I felt so awkward, but happy at the same time. For the first time in my life, attention was on me. But it wasn't long before I came crashing back down to earth, because as my mom cut into the cake, my face dropped. It was an ice cream cake. I'm lactose intolerant. It's Riley's favorite. First slice for the woman of the hour, my mom exclaimed before handing the plate to Riley. I tried to push my sadness away and remember everything Riley's done for us, but then it got worse. "Oh, I got her something too," my mom said before taking out a basket filled with Riley's favorite candy. My mouth went completely dry and I started zoning out, so I quietly retreated to my bedroom. Not because I was mad, but because I didn't want them to see me cry. Not even 5 minutes later, I could hear Riley helping mom go up the stairs. My heart fluttered. Were they actually checking in on me? "You need to be more grateful for your sister, Lily," my mom said, opening my door. At this point, it was just her in the room, so I popped the question I'd been waiting to ask since I was a child. "Mom, why do you never compliment me? Why do you never give me attention?" There was a long pause and my mom sighed. "Honey, if you can't appreciate Riley, then you need to leave." Well, you know the cliche, my life flashed before my eyes people always use. Turns out death isn't a requirement for that experience, because at that moment, I remembered everything. The crying on the kitchen floor from how tired I was every night. The dinners I made for her and Riley while I went to sleep hungry when she couldn't afford to send me to a $1,000 a year art school, but then bought Riley a $2,000 laptop that same month. The thank yous I never got. "You know what, Mom? You're right. I know she was probably just bluffing, but I was done." Her mouth opened slightly and I started shoving all my stuff into plastic bin bags. Deep down, I was fighting back tears, but she didn't need to know that. Honestly, it wouldn't have taken much for me to stay. But instead of saying sorry that she loved me, or even just a simple my bad, she just staggered out. That's how I spent my 16th birthday, on the bus to my dad's house with a freshly swollen face from crying, surrounded by black bin bags. But at least my dad was nice to me. Well, kind of. I was completely drained. I just wanted to talk about something else. "Anything else?" "Lily, I know taking care of your mom is tough, but you should really be more like your sister." My eyes narrowed. I didn't even say anything, just laughed sarcastically without humor. At that point, I accepted my 16th birthday was going to remain all about Riley. So I just went to bed. But turns out I was wrong, because it wasn't just my birthday. It was also the day after. When I woke up, I could hear my mom downstairs. This was weird because my mom and dad hadn't spoken since the diagnosis. Suddenly, all my sadness was replaced with anger. I stormed downstairs and told my mom, "I'm sorry that the first time you decided to sell half of my belongings so you could buy Riley a new Lego set. I let it slide because that made you think you could keep going." "Lee," she tried to interrupt, but I continued. "I'm sorry that I never told you about all the days I starved just so you could have better dinner." I stopped when I heard my dad's keys jingle. He was getting up to drive my mom home. His face was practically red with anger. First knew he hadn't known the whole story and that he was taking my side. Suddenly, a miracle happened. My mom left something behind, her bag with Riley's laptop in it. Without thinking, I posted a photo of it on Facebook to sell. On the account, "My whole family follows." In just 10 minutes, I had sold it for almost half the price and posted an updated photo with the word sold. I tagged both my mom and Riley. I felt a chaotic excitement brew in my stomach as I turned my phone off. A few hours later, I saw that I had missed calls and text, but not just from Riley and my mom. At that moment, I finally realized the butterfly effect is actually true, because it revealed a dark secret that changed how I viewed Riley forever. The first message I opened was from my aunt, Patricia. It simply said, "Call me now." So I did. "Lily, what's going on with you and your mother?" she asked immediately. I started explaining everything. The birthday disaster, the years of neglect, the laptop sale, which I was already regretting, but Aunt Tricia cut me off. "No, Lily, I mean about the MS. Your cousin Taylor just told me your mom was at the casino last night dancing and drinking without her cane." My heart dropped into my stomach. I felt like someone had just hit me with a truck. "Wait, what? The casino? Dancing?" I could barely get the words out. Aunt Patricia explained that cousin Taylor had been there for a friend's birthday party. She'd spotted mom across the room, moving around like she didn't have a care in the world. Not a cane or walker in sight, not a hint of fatigue or any symptom at all. According to Taylor, mom had been laughing freely, drinking cocktails, and even spent nearly an hour on the dance floor without any signs of the debilitating condition she claimed to suffer from daily. "Are you sure it was her?" I asked, but I already knew the answer. Deep down, I think I had always suspected something wasn't quite right with mom's illness. I thanked Aunt Patricia and hung up, my mind racing. The pieces started falling into place like a sick jigsaw puzzle. The way mom always seemed to have more energy when Riley was around. How her symptoms mysteriously worsened whenever I questioned anything. How she'd never let me come to doctor appointments, always saying it was too stressful for me to handle. There were all these little inconsistencies that I had dismissed over the years, choosing to believe her rather than trust my own observations. I called Riley right away, not even thinking about the laptop anymore. "Before you yell at me about the laptop, I need to tell you something important," I said quickly when she answered. "What could possibly be more important than you selling my property?" Riley snapped, her voice sharp with anger. I told her what Aunt Patricia had just told me. There was silence on the other end of the line, stretching uncomfortably long. "That's ridiculous," Riley finally said, but her voice wavered. Taylor must have seen someone else who looked like mom. I could tell she didn't fully believe what she was saying. This was big, even for Riley, who had always defended mom no matter what. "Riley, think about it. Have you ever seen any of mom's medical records? Have you ever spoken to her doctors? Has anyone ever confirmed her diagnosis besides mom herself?" More silence. Then I heard Riley exhale shakily. "I'll look into it," she said before hanging up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling numb. If mom had been faking her illness this whole time, what did that mean? Why would she do that? I thought about all the sacrifices we'd made. Riley working double shifts, me becoming a living maid, all the money people had donated over the years for her treatments, the fundraisers organized by well-meaning friends and church members, the countless hours of my childhood spent caring for someone who might not have needed care at all. My dad came home a couple hours later looking exhausted. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to tell someone. Dad, I think Mom's been faking her MS. I blurted out as soon as he walked in the door. He froze mid-step, then slowly turned to look at me. The color drained from his face. What did you just say? I repeated what Aunt Patricia had told me, instead of dismissing it immediately, like I expected. My dad sat down heavily at the kitchen table and put his head in his hands. Oh God, he whispered. That's when I realized he wasn't surprised. Not really. You suspected something, didn't you? I asked, my voice rising. All this time, Dad explained that he'd had doubts for years. That's part of why they split up. He tried to get Mom to see different doctors to get second opinions, but she always refused. When he pushed too hard, she threatened to take us kids away where he'd never see us again. So you just left us with her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I tried to get custody of you girls, he said, but your mom convinced the courts she needed you because of her condition. And you both seemed to believe her so completely. I thought maybe I was the crazy one. I felt like my whole world was imploding. The next few days passed in a blur. Riley called to tell me she'd gone through Mom's medicine cabinet and found tons of bottles with labels ripped off. She'd also checked Mom's calendar and found no record of all these doctor appointments she supposedly had. But the real smoking gun came from Josh, Riley's boyfriend. His aunt worked at the hospital where Mom claimed to get her treatment. He asked his aunt to check if Mom had ever been seen there for MS. Nothing. Not a single record. Riley showed up at Dad's place the next morning, looking like she hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, she said, her eyes rimmed with red from crying. Over the next few hours, we compared notes. Riley had experienced the same favoritism I had, just in reverse. When I wasn't around, Mom would tell Riley how useless I was, how I never did anything right, how I was lazy and ungrateful. She'd play us against each other perfectly, making sure we never compared stories. She made me think you were living the easy life while I worked my ass off, Riley admitted, tears in her eyes. I resented you for years, Lily. I'm so sorry. We hugged for what felt like the first time in forever. It was like discovering I had a sister all over again. Dad joined our conversation, filling in more gaps. He'd been sending Mom extra money all along. Money neither Riley nor I knew about. Money that apparently went toward casino trips and who knows what else while we struggled to pay bills. So what do we do now? I asked. Riley's face hardened. We confront her. I wasn't so sure. She'll just deny everything. We need proof. That's when Riley had an idea. She still had a key to Mom's house. We could set up cameras, catch her in the act of miraculously getting better when no one was around. It felt wrong invading someone's privacy like that. But what was the alternative? Let her keep manipulating us, keep scamming money from family and friends, keep treating me like garbage. We waited until we knew Mom would be out for her weekly physical therapy appointment, which we now suspected was actually just her day to go shopping or whatever she actually did. Riley, Dad, and I snuck into the house and planted small cameras in the living room, kitchen, and hallway. All places where Mom regularly used her cane or claimed she needed assistance. Then we waited. The footage we got back was more disturbing than anything I could have imagined. As soon as Mom was alone in the house, she moved normally, not just normally, energetically. She danced around the kitchen while cooking. She carried laundry baskets up and down stairs without any problem. She even got down on her hands and knees to scrub a spot on the kitchen floor, something she'd made me do countless times because she physically couldn't manage it. But the most devastating part was a phone call she made. We couldn't hear who was on the other end, but Mom's side of the conversation was clear enough. The girls still have no idea, she said, laughing. Riley sends me money every month like a good little ATM, and Lily does whatever I tell her to. It's the perfect setup. I felt sick watching it. Beside me, Riley was trembling with rage. Dad looked like he might throw up. We've got enough, Riley said, stopping the video. Let's go talk to her. We decided to confront her together the next day. I barely slept that night, running through different scenarios in my head. Would she deny everything? Would she try to manipulate us again? Would she finally, for once in her life, just tell the truth? The next morning, the three of us drove to Mom's house. I felt like I was heading to my own execution. My stomach was in knots. Mom seemed surprised to see all three of us together. Her face did that thing where she instantly put on her sick expression, slightly pained, moving slower, reaching for her cane. What's this about? She asked, looking between us suspiciously. We know, Mom, Riley said simply. We know you've been faking. Mom's face went through a series of expressions. Surprise, anger, denial before settling on indignation. How dare you? After everything I've been through, after my body has betrayed me, my own family accuses me of lying. She was good. I'll give her that. If I hadn't seen the video evidence with my own eyes, I might have even believed her. She started crying, accusing us of being cruel and heartless. That's when Dad pulled out his phone and played the video of her dancing in the kitchen. Then the clip of her phone conversation. The change was instant. Mom's face hardened, all traces of tears gone. She straightened up, no longer leaning on her cane. Fine, she spat. You caught me. So what? I couldn't believe the coldness in her voice. This wasn't the mother I had known or thought I had known my whole life. Why? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why would you do this to us? Mom looked at me like I was stupid. Do you know how much attention and money I've gotten from this? People feel sorry for me. They help me. They admire my bravery. It's better than working 2 jobs just to scrape by. What about us? Riley demanded. I worked myself to exhaustion for years. Lily gave up her entire childhood to take care of you. Mom just shrugged. That was your choice. I didn't force you to do anything, but she had. Through manipulation, through guilt, through playing us against each other. She'd forced us into roles that served her needs while disregarding ours completely. You made Lily think I was the favorite, Riley said, her voice shaking. And you made me think she was lazy and useless. You turned us against each other. Mom didn't even deny it. It worked, didn't it? Kept you both busy, kept the attention off what I was doing. I stood there trying to process the fact that my mother, the person who was supposed to love and protect me, had deliberately caused me pain for years, had watched me cry, had watched me struggle, and had felt nothing but satisfaction that her plan was working. We want the money back, Dad said firmly. All of it. What you took from me. What Riley sent you. The donations from family and friends, all of it. Mom laughed in his face. Good luck proving anything. It's your word against mine. Who do you think people will believe? The poor sick single mother or the ex-husband who abandoned his family? But she was wrong. We had the videos, we had her confession. And as Riley pointed out, we had something else. All the medical records that didn't exist. The doctor appointments that never happened. The treatments that were never received. You committed fraud, Mom, Riley said. That's a crime. For the first time, I saw fear flash across Mom's face. She hadn't thought about that part. You wouldn't turn in your own mother, she said, but she didn't sound so confident anymore. Watch us, Riley replied. We left her standing there frozen in her own living room. As we walked out, I felt a strange mix of emotions, anger, relief, sadness, but most of all, a weird sense of freedom. The weight of taking care of someone who didn't appreciate me, who didn't even need my care, was finally lifted. Over the next few weeks, things moved quickly. We reported Mom to the police for fraud. We reached out to family members and friends who had donated money over the years, showing them the evidence we had gathered. Most were shocked. Some didn't believe us at first, but the evidence was hard to deny. Mom tried to turn people against us. She claimed we were lying, that we were trying to hurt her because we were selfish and cruel. Some people fell for it, but most didn't. The truth was too clear. The hardest part was dealing with my own feelings. Some days I hated her for what she'd done. Other days I missed the mom I thought I had, even though that person never really existed. I started seeing a therapist, which helped a lot. I learned that what Mom had done was a form of abuse, that it wasn't my fault. fault that I deserved better. Riley and I grew closer than we ever had been. We talked about everything, our childhood, the ways Mom had manipulated us, our hope for the future. For the first time, I felt like I had a real sister, not just a competitor for Mom's affection. I moved in with Dad permanently, and we started rebuilding our relationship too. He apologized over and over for not fighting harder for custody, for not seeing through Mom's lies sooner. I forgave him. He was a victim in this too. About a month after our confrontation, Riley and I decided to go back to Mom's house to collect some of our remaining belongings. We hadn't heard from her directly, though we knew from family members that she was facing potential legal consequences for her actions. When we arrived, the house was eerily quiet. We used Riley's key to let ourselves in. Mom, Riley called out. No answer. We started gathering our things, photo albums, childhood mementos, items that had sentimental value. That's when I noticed something strange in Mom's bedroom. All her clothes were gone. Her jewelry box was empty. The drawer where she kept her passport and important documents was completely cleared out. It was as if she had methodically removed every trace of her personal existence from the house. Riley, I called out. I think Mom's gone. We searched the house and found a note on the kitchen table. My hands shook as I picked it up and read aloud. Girls, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Don't bother looking for me. I'm not sorry for what I did. I did what I had to do to survive. Maybe someday you'll understand, or maybe you won't. Either way, this is goodbye, Mom. Riley and I stared at each other in shock. Mom had fled rather than face the consequences of her actions. Part of me was relieved I wouldn't have to see her in court, wouldn't have to relive everything she'd done. Another part felt cheated of closure. We called the police to report that she'd skipped town. They said they'd look for her, but honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted them to find her. What would that accomplish? She'd never truly be sorry. She'd never understand the pain she caused us. What do we do now? I asked Riley as we sat on the front steps of what used to be our home. We move on, she said simply. We build better lives than the ones she tried to trap us in. I nodded, feeling a surprising sense of peace washing over me. Mom's disappearance was just another manipulation, a final attempt to control the narrative, but she couldn't control us anymore. A week later, we got a surprising lead. Susan, a woman who worked at a hotel in a town about 3 hours away, had seen our story on a local news segment. She recognized Mom as a recent guest who'd paid cash and used a fake name. By the time police checked it out, Mom was gone again, but she'd left something behind, a journal. The police gave it to us after determining it wasn't evidence they needed. Reading it was like peering into the mind of a stranger. Mom detailed her elaborate scheme, how she'd researched MS symptoms, how she'd practiced her sick act, how she manipulated doctors into giving her prescriptions without a proper diagnosis. She wrote about how easy it was to fool everyone, how she enjoyed the attention, and she wrote about us, how she deliberately played us against each other to keep us busy and distracted, how she resented us for trapping her in motherhood when she'd rather have been free to do whatever she wanted. The coldness of her words was shocking, but there was something else in those pages too. Evidence, names of doctors she'd deceived, account numbers where she'd hidden money, details about other scams she'd run before the MS lie. It was like she was proudly documenting her crimes, never expecting anyone else would read it. We turned the journal over to Linda, the detective handling Mom's case. She said it was a gold mine of evidence that would make their case much stronger when they found her, if they found her. As spring turned to summer, I gradually stopped checking for updates on Mom's case. I focused instead on healing, on rebuilding my relationship with Riley and Dad, on figuring out who I was outside of being the caretaker. I went back to school, made some real friends for the first time in years. I even signed up for an art class at the community center, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time for when I was taking care of Mom. One evening, as I was working on a painting in Dad's garage that I'd converted into a makeshift studio, Riley stopped by unexpectedly. I've been thinking, she said, watching me work. Remember how Mom always said you weren't talented enough for art school? I nodded, trying not to let the memory sting. Well, she was lying about that too. This is really good, Lily. I smiled, feeling a warm thread through my chest. Thanks, I want to help you apply for that art school, Riley continued. The one Mom said we couldn't afford. I've been saving up. Between that and scholarships, we can make it work. I put down my paintbrush, overcome with emotion. Really? It's time we both got to live the lives we want, not the ones Mom forced us into. As we hugged, I realized something important. Mom's betrayal had broken something in me, but it had also freed me. For the first time in my life, I was discovering who I really was without the weight of her lies and manipulation. I didn't know if they'd ever find Mom. I didn't know if she'd ever face justice for what she'd done, but I did know this. She no longer had power over me, over us. We were building something new from the ashes of her deception, a real family based on truth and genuine care for each other. And that felt like the biggest victory of all. I'll never forget the day we got the call. It came on a random Tuesday morning almost 6 months after Mom had disappeared. I was getting ready for my art class when my phone rang. It was Linda, the detective who'd been handling Mom's case. We found her, she said simply. My heart started racing. I told her I'd call her right back and immediately phoned Riley. She was at work but said she'd take her lunch break early. 20 minutes later, we were on a three-way call with Linda. Where is she? Riley asked. Atlantic City, Linda replied. She was working as a cocktail waitress at one of the smaller casinos using the name Sarah Johnson. I almost laughed. Sarah was my mom's middle name. Johnson was my maternal grandmother's maiden name. Not exactly criminal mastermind level creativity there. So what happens now? I asked. We're bringing her back tomorrow. The fraud charges are solid, especially with that journal and all the video evidence. I wanted to give you both a heads up before it hits the local news. After we hung up, Riley and I sat in silence for a while just processing. I had mixed feelings about the whole thing. Part of me wanted closure, wanted to see Mom face consequences for what she'd done. Another part wished she just stayed gone forever. Are you going? Go see her? Riley finally asked. I don't know, I admitted. Are you? Riley sighed. I think I have to just to look her in the eye and make sure I really understand that she's not the person I thought she was. I nodded. I got that. The fantasy that Mom might somehow explain herself, might show some remorse, was hard to let go of completely. The next day, Riley picked me up from Dad's house and we drove to the county detention center together. Dad had offered to come, but we both felt this was something we needed to do on our own. We waited in a sterile room with plastic chairs and fluorescent lighting. When they brought Mom in, I almost didn't recognize her. Her hair was dyed platinum blonde now, and she'd lost weight, but the biggest difference was in her demeanor. Gone was the frail, sickly woman she'd pretended to be for years. She walked confidently, head held high, not a trace of the shuffling gait she'd perfected for her MS performance. She sat down across from us, not looking particularly surprised to see us, not looking particularly anything really. Hello, girls, she said like we were dropping by for a casual visit. Why did you do it? Riley asked, getting straight to the point. Mom shrugged. I already told you it was easier than working. No, I said, finding my voice. Why did you treat me the way you did? Why did you make me feel like I was nothing? For a second, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Regret, shame, but it disappeared so quickly I might have imagined it. I needed someone to take care of the house, she replied flatly. You were better at it than Riley. She was better at bringing in money. I just used you both where you were most useful. The coldness of her response hit me like a slap. There was no motherly love there, no emotional connection at all. We might as well have been appliances to her, just just tools to make her life more comfortable. Did you ever care about us at all? Riley asked, her voice cracking slightly. Mom tilted her head, considering the question. I suppose I did in my way when you were Bobby's before it got so complicated. We didn't stay much longer after that. There was nothing more to say. No grand revelation to be had. Mom was who she was, someone incapable of the kind of love that parents are supposed to have for their children. Walking back to the car, I felt strangely lighter. Not happy exactly, but free in a way I hadn't been before. The last lingering hope that Mom might somehow turn into the mother I'd always wanted was finally gone, and with it went the last of my obligation to her. You okay? Riley asked as we got in the car. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I actually am. Over the next few months, life settled into a new kind of normal. Mom's trial was quick and decisive. The evidence against her was overwhelming. She was sentenced to 5 years for fraud with the possibility of parole after 3. Riley and I didn't attend the sentencing. We'd said our goodbyes in that detention center. Dad helped me apply to art schools, and to my shock, I got accepted to my dream program with a partial scholarship. Between that, Dad's help, and the money Riley insisted on contributing, I could actually go. For the first time in my life, I was pursuing something just for me. Not to earn Mom's approval or to keep the household running, but because I loved it and wanted to see where it could take me. Riley and Josh got engaged that summer. She asked me to be her maid of honor, which made me cry like a baby when she asked. The wedding planning brought us even closer. We'd text each other ridiculous dress ideas and joke about whether we should send Mom an invitation to the prison. Dark humor became our way of processing everything that had happened. That fall, I moved into my dorm at art school. Dad helped me settle in, hanging some of my paintings on the walls and making sure I had everything I needed. As he was leaving, he gave me a long hug. I'm so proud of you, Lily, he said. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but I want you to know that it meant more than I could express. After years of invisibility, being seen and valued was still something I was getting used to. My roommate Taylor turned out to be awesome. A photography major with a wicked sense of humor who didn't mind my occasional nightmares or the days when memories hit me hard and I needed to be alone. I told her about Mom early on, wanting to get ahead of any weird behavior on my part. Instead of being freaked out, she shared that her dad had been emotionally abusive, so she kind of got it. It was the first time I'd met someone my age who understood what it was like to have a parent who didn't love you properly. Around Christmas, a strange thing happened. I got a letter from Mom. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a short note and a small key. This opens a safety deposit box at First National Bank in our old town. The note read, "What's inside belongs to you. I should have given it to you years ago." There was no apology, no explanation, just her signature at the bottom. I called Riley right away, and she drove down from her place to pick me up the next day. Together, we went to the bank. The manager took us to a private room and left us alone with a small metal box that the key had opened. Inside was over $30,000 in cash, along with a stack of old photographs I'd never seen before. They were pictures of me as a baby and toddler, with Mom looking genuinely happy as she held me. There were crayon drawings I'd made as a child, report cards with good grades circled in red pen, even a lock of my baby hair tied with a ribbon. Things a normal mother would treasure. At the bottom of the box was another note. "This is your college fund. I've been adding to it since you were born. I never sent it, even when times were tough. The rest are things I saved when you were little before I changed. I don't expect forgiveness. Just know that there was a time when I was a real mother to you." Riley and I sat there in shock, trying to process this glimpse of the woman Mom might have been once or could have been if something hadn't broken inside her along the way. "What do you think happened to her?" I asked Riley, "to make her change like that?" Riley shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. We decided to split the money. Even though Mom had seemingly intended it just for me, it felt right that way." Riley put her half toward her and Josh's first house. I kept most of mine for college expenses, but used a small amount to buy a professional camera, something I'd wanted for years to photograph subjects for my paintings. The photos and mementos from the safety deposit box were harder to know what to do with. I ended up keeping them in a special box under my bed. They didn't change how I felt about Mom or what she'd done, but they were evidence that she hadn't always been the monster she became. There was some small comfort in that. Life went on. I threw myself into my classes, discovering a talent for portrait work that even my toughest professors recognized. I made friends, went on a few dates, started building a life that was entirely my own. Riley and Josh got married in a beautiful spring ceremony where I cried happy tears instead of sad ones. Dad met a kind woman named Mary who actually bothered to learn all about my art project and came to my first student exhibition. Sometimes I'd get questions about Mom from people who knew our story. "Have you forgiven her?" they'd ask. Like forgiveness was the obvious end goal of this whole journey. The truth was more complicated than that. I didn't hate Mom anymore. Hate required too much energy that I preferred to put elsewhere. But forgiveness implied that things were resolved, healed, okay now, and some things just can't be fixed with forgiveness. What I learned instead was acceptance. I accepted that Mom was deeply flawed, possibly mentally ill in ways I'd never understand. I accepted that she'd caused real damage that would always be part of me. And I accepted that her failure as a mother didn't determine my worth or my future. On the 1-year anniversary of Mom's sentencing, Riley and I met up for dinner. We didn't plan it that way on purpose, but when we realized the date, we decided to acknowledge it rather than ignore it. "To surviving," Riley said, raising her glass. "To more than surviving," I replied, "to actually living." We clinked glasses and I felt that now familiar sense of peace wash over me. Mom had taken so much from us over the years. Our childhoods, our self-esteem, our trust in other people. But in the end, she couldn't take our future. That belonged to us alone. I still don't know if Mom will try to contact us when she gets out of prison in a few years. Part of me hopes she won't. We've all moved on to healthier places, but if she does, I'm prepared. Not with anger or bitterness, but with strong boundaries and the knowledge that I no longer need her approval to know my own worth. That knowledge was hard won, but it's mine now. No one can ever take it. Like and subscribe for more videos like these. Thanks for watching.